see the emotion on your face, but hear it in your voice when you talk about this, Lee. Why?
I care.
Hedge fund billionaire Leon Cooperman cried on CNBC during an interview where he was discussing the unpopularity of Donald Trump and the idea of a wealth tax. Watch.
The wealth tax is a bankrupt concept, and I think that her and Bernie Sanders are presenting a lot of ideas to the public which are morally and socially bankrupt. I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money. Just tell me what you think the maximum tax rate should be. Stop talking about 2% where you're basically misrepresenting the facts. It's 2% of wealth. Just think about this. If Jeff Bezos' wealth is tied up all in Amazon stock, he's going to be forced every year to sell 2% of his stock, regardless of what the outlook is for the company. That's just wrong. Basically, she and Bernie Sanders are promising things to people that are not achievable. America is the best performing economy in the world. We have the best economic system in the world. Yes, rich people should pay more in taxes. The question is how much more. I just have a problem with vilifying the wealthy. They should not be vilified, okay? They shouldn't be praised. They should be treated like everybody else. I am not in favor of all this impeachment inquiry. I want the American people to decide in November of 2020 what the future should be.
I think, I think it's kind of obvious people can not only see the emotion on your face, but hear it in your voice when you talk about this, Lee. Why?
I care. That's it. His program is very analogous to Ronald Reagan, a very beloved president. When Reagan ran for president, he said, I'm going to get the government off the backs of the people. I'm going to do that by reducing regulation and taxes. Ditto for President Trump.
All right. I mean, this was just hilarious. He went from crying, by the way, as you saw at the end, went from crying and then pulled himself together to praise Ronald Reagan. We'll get to that. But it's like the sense of injustice this man feels as a hedge fund billionaire. I mean, it's unbelievable. This guy doesn't have to worry about low wages, the cost of housing, medical bills, or student loan debt, but he's worried about a 2% wealth tax on any wealth over $50 million. These people live in such a bubble. They really have no idea what life is like for the average person. It is just unbelievable. Here are some of the quotes. So he says, what Sanders and Warren are proposing is morally and socially bankrupt. If the wealth tax is tied up in stock, then Jeff Bezos would have to be forced every year to sell 2% of his stock. Okay, what's the problem? Yes, rich people should pay more in taxes. The question is how much more? Well, you just cried over a 2% wealth tax on wealth over $50 million. What is your idea of taxation? If 2% is too much. And he also says the wealthy should be treated like everyone else. This is one of my favorite ones. This is coming from a billionaire who is invited onto national television to give his opinion about politics. Why? Because he's a billionaire. So while he is saying billionaires should be treated like everyone else, he is given a platform that everyone else is not offered. He just has no idea of the world he lives in. Now, back to Reagan here. So he says Reagan is a very beloved president because he reduced regulation and taxes, and America has the best economic system in the world. I'm glad he mentioned these things. This from MarketWatch. America's 1% hasn't controlled this much wealth since before the Great Depression. This from CNN Business. The top 26 billionaires own 1.4 trillion, as much as 3.8 billion other people. And quoting inequality.org here, in 1982, the poorest American listed on the first annual Forbes magazine list of America's richest 400 had a net worth of $80 million. The average member of that first list had a net worth of $230 million. In 2016, rich Americans needed a net worth of $1.7 billion to enter the Forbes 400. and the average member held a net $6 billion, over 10 times the 1982 average after adjusting for inflation. And the net worth of the richest member of the Forbes 400 has soared from $2 billion in 1982 to $81 billion in 2016, which, by the way, that number is much higher now. So, wealth inequality is out of control. Yet this man thinks a modest 2% wealth tax on wealth over $50 million is worth crying on national television over. Now, yes, a wealth tax is actually a part of the answer here. So, quoting economist Gabriel Zuckman, why just a small wealth tax can address systemic inequality in the U.S. Quote, a tax of 2% on the wealth above $50 million and 3% above $1 billion. That tax alone would double the effective tax rate of billionaires from 23% today to 46%, says Zuckman. Second, it would generate a lot of tax revenue, about $2.6 trillion over the next 10 years. That's money that can be used for childcare, for healthcare, for student debt relief, which will make it possible for the rest of the population to see their income grow more and to see their wealth grow. So it cannot fix all the problems, but just a small wealth tax on a tiny fraction of the population, because inequality has increased so much and there is so much wealth at the top, it can go some way towards addressing inequality. And it's going to happen. So both Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have a wealth tax. Bernie's wealth tax goes farther. And you're seeing right now where the energy is in the Democratic Party. It's behind Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Mostly Bernie Sanders, but Elizabeth Warren does have energy as well. The people are fighting back. So the Bernie Sanders campaign right now has the most volunteers by far, the most individual donations by far, is the only campaign to hit 1 million individual donors, now over 1 million individual donors. No other candidate has that. He has the grassroots movement. The people are fighting back. And the billionaire tears, like in this video, only help to fuel the engine.